Um, Welcome to this series of interviews that we're doing with people who have experienced some kind of change in their lives. This is Chris Daems of Cervello Financial Management, and he's one of our partners. So very good to talk to you, Chris.
Lovely to talk to you, Hilary.
And when I suggested setting this up, you said that 2020 had been a bit of a roller coaster. So would you like to kick off saying a little bit about yourself and what's happened in 2020?
Sure. So, as Hilary said, my name is Chris Daems from Cervello Financial Planning. We look after clients who are approaching the stage of their life where they've gone through some change and they're considering what's next. And certainly 2020 for us has been a year of really interesting change. So just so you've got a bit of an insight into me, I've got two daughters, one who's just 17, she was 17 yesterday, and one who was just turned 9. So the interesting thing about 2020 for us was the change that occurred through work, but just how it impacted our life and how emotionally that was quite a sort of an interesting roller coaster ride through 2020, because there were ups and downs throughout. And I think what might be worth sharing is some of the ways that I've sort of used to maintain my sanity throughout 2020 as well. So yeah,
it's really helpful because I think your story will probably resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, on the sort of not so positive side, I think one of the things that I've realised is that even though I think that I'm relatively sort of intelligent and relatively good at what I do, I realised that I am the worst homeschool teacher in the world ever. And certainly the experience of trying to help a then 8-year-old get through the process of lockdown while still learning a bit was really tough. And it was interesting because Cervello does a number of interviews as well. And one of the things that we did through lockdown to help our clients just sort of navigate change was interview a number of key people. And it was a really selfish reason that I did this, Hilary. But one of the interviewees we had up in the early days of Cervello Live, which was our interview series, was a lady called Helen Westwood. And Helen was the Financial Education Teacher of the Year last year. And the reason I wanted to invite her along is because I just wanted to understand what to do with homeschooling, because at that point I was not getting it right. And she said, actually, don't be too hard on yourself. And I think that one of the things that I've learned in 2020 is, it's been a big change for everybody, and sometimes we can be a bit hard on ourselves, right?
I think that's very true. I think that's really true. Yes.
Yeah. So I think sort of just cutting ourselves a little bit of slack in 2020 sort of really worked for us. And in addition to that, just trying to maintain some sense of routines sort of worked as well. So for me, that was exercise. So when in lockdown 1, when we were allowed to go out for a run, I made sure I made the most of that. And just when a lot of routines are up in the air, just trying to maintain an element of stability and something I could rely on
Yes.
was important as well.
Very much so. Very much so. And how did you find the first lockdown compared with the second lockdown? Or perhaps I should put it the other way around. Second lockdown compared with the first.
Actually, I think there was an element in the second lockdown where there was a bit more certainty, wasn't there? We knew how long it was going to last. We could see light at the end of the tunnel, and we were getting more positive news with the vaccine and everything else that was happening in 2020. So the second lockdown felt finite and therefore copable. At the start of the first lockdown, there was an element of nobody knows how long this was going to last or what was going to happen. So there were days when my frame of mind, and I consider myself quite a positive person, but my frame of mind in lockdown 1 was less motivated than it normally is. And I think we all suffered from that, didn't we, in lockdown 1?
very much so. And when you say not as motivated as usual, how exactly were you feeling at that time?
Yeah, great question. Annoyed, but with no particular target for that annoyance, because nobody can be blamed for the situation. Frustration, and just not having finite sort of borders which I could sort of hang my hat to. And certainly it was interesting because in the early days of lockdown one, in our business, a lot of our time was spent reassuring clients as well. So what got me through, funny enough, was the obligation that I had to my clients to make sure that they were okay. And that's been the interesting thing about this situation. I think in 2020, we've relied on, number one, the kindness of others quite a lot, but also sort of the relationships we've got with other people, both personal and professional. And actually, people needing me got me through in quite a good way, as opposed to me needing other people. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. I think there's a lot about, sometimes, we get help from helping other people, as you say. I was going to ask you, who do you have around you who you also use for support? Because otherwise it sounds like, everybody was kind of depending on you.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly not true. And my life wouldn't run particularly well without the support of most people. So certainly my wife, Cassie, and my two girls, Charlotte and Sophie, are certainly massive supporters of mine. In the business, we've got a really good team who support me to deliver what we do with the clients. But also my brother, who lives in Norfolk, so he's not local. He's been certainly supported through this period. And just having those networks of people you can sort of pick up the phone to, engage with online and say, I've got this situation, help me understand what you're doing, has been really useful. And just keeping the communication going. I mean, I think the challenge I've got, Hilary, is I'm a natural extrovert, so not seeing people has been one of the big roller coaster challenges of 2020. But maintaining that human connection, even though it isn't the same, maintaining that human connection has been really important.
Indeed, I think that's very true, and I have a lot of empathy with because I'm an extrovert too. So just being kind of closed in, feel really sort of claustrophobic when you can't reach out. So that's something I've found difficult. But I will also wonder to what extent you and perhaps your clients have been affected by this lockdown or the pandemic in such a way that you have thought about, actually, there are changes that I'd like to make to my life. There are some positive aspects of this that I'd like to continue with. I've learned something, or, as I say, either you or your clients.
So really interestingly, so in the early days of lockdown, as I said, there was some volatility in investment markets, and because we look after the pensions and investments for a lot of our clients, there was an element of making sure that they were comfortable with that volatility, because we had a slumping market short term that we knew longer term was going to improve, but emotionally it's difficult to sometimes sort of bridge that gap. So our job at that point was to, my kids tease me for this, but my favourite phrase during that first period was, "This too shall pass." Don't panic and make sure that we get through it. But what people found is, as their behaviours and patterns changed, they had more time to consider what their futures looked like. So we had a demand at the end of lockdown one, and has continued up to now, of people coming to us and saying, "You know what, Chris, this has been a eye-opener about how I may want to live in the future. Can you help me navigate what my next 10 years plan looks like and 20-year plan looks like? Because actually it's changed." I tell you what's interesting. I've also had a few conversations with people who have used lockdown as a bit of a learning opportunity. So people have said, right, okay, I've got all this extra time. I'm not commuting into the city 2 hours a day. How am I going to use that productively to learn a new skill or develop a side business or do something different?
Yes.
But I've also had clients who have got enough money to never work again, who have actually decided that they want to go back to work. Because like you and I, Hilary, they're extroverts, and actually work satisfies a part of their personality.
Yes, yes. I think it very often it doesn't take long for people to realize that they're bored. And going deeper than that, actually, they want their lives to add up to something. You know, they want to leave some kind of a legacy, not financial, but, you know, they want to be able to pass something on, make a difference.
It's purpose, isn't it?
It is. It's very much all about purpose. I think this will very much make people think, you know, actually, what is this all about? And, you and I both work in the same space when it comes to that. You know, you come at it from a financial planning side, and we come at it from, you know, I guess, you know, different kinds of change, career change, redundancy, you know, perhaps a bereavement, anything that makes people think, actually, I need to start planning my life differently.
Well, what's really interesting was that, I mean, we did a piece of research at the back end of lockdown 1, where we surveyed a lot of our clients, a lot of our connections online to find out because we'd been speaking to people about change so much, what change they were going through in their life. And one of the interesting things is as a group, as a collective of the people we surveyed, and I suppose we'd expect to see this for our clients, their financial well-being was pretty high. But there were other elements of their life where they felt that well-being wasn't as high. And the interesting thing about that is, if your financial well-being is high but you're not enjoying your job, is it time to get really clear on where you are financially so you can make the changes you need to live a happier life with more well-being?
Yes, I think we're very much on the same page with that, aren't we, Chris?
100%, yeah. So I think there's certainly, as I say, certainly been massive emotional roller coasters for me, and I suppose everybody who's gone through 2020. The optimist in me, Hilary, said that there might be an opportunity as well to sort of reevaluate our life. What do you think?
Very much so, very much so. And I think the last question I'd ask you is, as you come to the end of 2020, has it been the worst year of your life?
No, I've actually enjoyed it. I tell you why. So it's been a challenge, certainly. It's been it's come with a lot of surprises, certainly. But one of the bizarre side effects is I've never spent so much time with my girls, so my wife and my 2 daughters. And what I've realised is that they're amazing people. They're really just spending time with them. Hilary, Cass is on the other side of this desk, so she can hear me say this, and I will now never live it down. But certainly, just having the opportunity forced on us, even though it's frustrating and even though it created challenges in the dynamic, just sort of was a really good opportunity. So, as I say, challenges, but definitely not I can't think of what the worst year was. Probably one of my school years, but certainly 2020 hasn't been the worst year in my life.
Great. It's really good to hear that. And I think it's sometimes good to challenge our own thinking, because I see a lot of people saying, oh, I can't wait to see the back of 2020. And I think sometimes when we think like that, we don't always realize the kind of the blessings, the learning, what we've taken from something that we can forward into 2021. And we're certainly starting to think about, you know, what we do in 2021. And I know working with you is part of that, which we're very much looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And I think interestingly, one of the reasons 2020 for me at this stage of my life isn't the worst year is because I'm far more emotionally resilient now than I probably was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So that self-development has helped me maybe reframe things a little bit. And yeah, it's super excited about 2021 working together as well.
Indeed. Really, Chris, thank you very much indeed for that.
You're welcome, Hilary. Loved it.
Okay, great. Bye.